I never thought a simple trip to the grocery store would end up being used as evidence against me, but that's exactly what happened. And the worst part, the people who were supposed to have my back didn't. They looked at the video, looked at me and said, "Well, you look fine." Let me back up. I have a chronic pain condition. I don't like to get into the medical details because people start treating you different once they know the name. They either baby you or they accuse you of faking. So I just say I live with constant pain. It's like imagine you pulled a muscle in your back and it just never heals. Some days it's a dull ache, a 4 out of 1 0. Most days it's a solid 6. And on bad days, when it spikes to a 7 or 8, I use a cane. I have a handicap placard for my car. I filed paperwork with my full-time job and my part-time job, so they knew I might need accommodations. I thought I was covered. The part-time job is something I actually enjoy. I'm an assistant coordinator at a place that expanded recently. My boss, Amy, is great. She's fair and she listens. My coworker, Casey, is also an assistant coordinator. We're in the same position. Casey has been gunning for a promotion for years. She wants Amy's job eventually. Everyone knows it. I, on the other hand, made it clear I don't want a promotion. I already have a full-time job. This part-time gig is for padding my savings and keeping busy. I thought that would make Casey see me as no threat. Instead, she saw me as someone taking up space. The trouble started on a Sunday. I was having a bad pain day. It was a solid 7, maybe higher. I used my cane to get around the house. But by late afternoon, I needed to pick up a few things at the grocery store. I didn't take the cane because I knew I'd only be in the store for 10 minutes and the shopping cart would act as a support. That was my mistake. I parked in a handicap spot because I have the placard. I grabbed a cart, walked through the aisles, got my stuff, and checked out. I didn't notice anyone watching me. But when I got home, I had a text from a friend who also works at the same part-time job. She said, "Hey, did you know Casey posted a video of you in the group chat?" I checked my phone. Casey had filmed me from her car in the parking lot. The video showed me walking from the store to my car, lifting the groceries into the trunk, getting in and driving away. No cane, no limping, just a person doing normal grocery shopping. She captioned it, "See, she doesn't need handicap parking. She's not disabled. She's faking it for the perks." The group chat was for our department, about 15 people. Some of them laughed. A couple people said things like, "That's messed up, Casey," but most stayed silent. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I have chronic pain every single day. I don't use the cane unless I absolutely have to. And on that day I had a cart to lean on. That's not faking, that's managing. I called Amy, my boss, the next morning. I told her what happened. She sounded upset. She said she'd talk to HR and to Casey. I thought it would be handled quickly. Casey would get a warning, maybe apologize, and that would be it. But that's not how it went. HR called me in for a meeting. They asked me why I thought Casey's video was a problem. I explained my condition, that I'm legally disabled, that I have paperwork on file. They nodded. Then they said, "But you were walking fine in the video." I said, "Because I had a cart, and even if I didn't, some days are better than others." They said they'd look into it. A week went by, then I got a written warning for conduct unbecoming of an employee. The reason? They said I had created a hostile work environment by accusing Casey of something she didn't do. They said Casey had only been trying to protect company resources by making sure handicap spots were used appropriately. I couldn't believe it. I was being punished for reporting someone who stalked me and posted a video of me without my consent. That's when I went to the police. I thought maybe they could help with the stalking part. The officer at the front desk took my information. He looked at the video. He said, "Well, you're walking normally. Did you tell her not to film you?" I said, "I didn't know she was filming me. How could I tell her not to?" He shrugged. He said it was a civil matter, not criminal. He suggested I talk to a lawyer, so I did. I found an employment lawyer. She looked at everything and said I had a strong case for disability discrimination and invasion of privacy. She sent a letter to the company. That's when things escalated. Casey found out about the lawyer. She started following me more. She would park near my car after my shifts, take photos, send them to HR. She even showed up at my regular grocery store on a different day when I was using my cane, and she took a video of me limping. She posted that too, saying, "Look, she uses a cane sometimes, but she also walks without it. She's inconsistent. That proves she's lying." HR called me in again. They said they had evidence that I was selectively disabled. Those were their exact words. They said my condition appeared to be intermittent and that maybe I was exaggerating for the accommodations. I sat there in that gray office, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "That's how chronic pain works. It's not the same every day. That's literally the definition." They didn't care. They told me I was on a performance improvement plan. Basically, if I missed any work or used any accommodations, I would be fired. I didn't scream. I didn't cry until I got to my car. I called my husband. He was furious. He said, "We're going to sue them into the ground." But that's easier said than done. The legal process takes time, and every day I have to go back to that job and see Casey smirking in the break room. Amy, my boss, tries to be supportive, but her hands are tied. She told me off the record that HR is protecting Casey because Casey has been there longer and has connections. So here I am, I'm disabled, I have proof, I have paperwork, I have a lawyer. But I'm still the one being treated like a criminal. And the woman who filmed me without my permission, who stalked me, who tried to ruin my reputation, she got a promotion. Yeah, Casey got promoted to senior coordinator because she showed initiative in maintaining workplace integrity. That was the moment I realized the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to. I thought my situation was bad, but then I read a story from a dad who went through something that made my workplace nonsense look like a parking ticket. This guy's family got torn apart over a pregnancy, a lying teenager, and a wife who refused to hear the truth. I felt for him. Because I know what it's like to be the only one in the room who sees what's really happening. He starts off by saying his son just turned 16. The kid had a girlfriend who was almost 17. They broke up about a month ago. Then 3 weeks ago, the girl's parents called. She was pregnant, slightly showing. The dates lined up with the relationship. His wife and him went into full panic mode. They waited a couple days before telling their son. The kid didn't know. He immediately said, "It's not mine, I never fucked her." The dad didn't believe him at first because he knew the kid was active. The son had even asked for condoms before, but the son kept insisting they never did it. He admitted he cheated on her. The dad had a heart-to-heart with him, called him an absolute shithead, but started to believe him. The son said he always rapped and asked for restocks. The wife, on the other hand, still didn't believe him. Both families met. The wife started the conversation just accepting that their son was the father, trying to figure out funding solutions. The son spoke up again, saying it wasn't his baby because they never had sex. He was genuinely angry. Then he made a comment the dad rephrased. Apparently they only ever did a certain act that can't result in a baby, and it was unsatisfactory, so he never went further. The dad and his wife raged at him over that. The ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely did it but explained the event, the when and where, and it was believable too. The dad knew his son was a complete liar, an absolute dog, but he still believed him. His wife got angry. She said he was playing into the son's nonsense, part of boy culture. She said children born into that kind of denial suffer. It turned into a huge fight. The dad suggested a paternity test once the baby was born. The wife agreed but said even if the test proved it, their son was still responsible for being a deadbeat if he didn't step up. The son kept saying he'd take a test, no problem. The ex-girlfriend's parents were fine with it too, but the tension in the house got worse. The wife started sleeping in the guest room. She said the dad was enabling their son, teaching him to avoid consequences. The dad felt like he was the only one listening to the actual facts. Then, about a week later, the kid came home from school looking pale. He sat the dad down and said, "Dad, I need to tell you something, I'm gay." He started crying. He said he'd known for a while that he never wanted to have sex with his ex-girlfriend, that he was scared to tell anyone. He said he cheated on her with a boy from the baseball team. That's why he asked for condoms for that relationship, not for her. He said the ex-girlfriend knew he was gay and they had an agreement to keep it secret while he figured things out. The dad sat there stunned. He didn't scream, he just hugged his son and said, "I'm proud of you for telling me." Then he asked, "Does your mother know?" The kid shook his head. The dad called his wife into the living room. He told her gently. She stared at their son like he was a stranger. Then she said, "You're just saying that to get out of being a father." The kid broke down. He said, "Mom, I'm not lying. I have proof. I can show you texts." His wife walked out of the room. She didn't speak to either of them for 2 days. The dad tried to mediate. He showed his wife the texts from the ex-girlfriend where she confirmed the agreement. He showed her texts from the boy on the baseball team. His wife said it didn't matter. She said their son had still done things with a girl, even if not intercourse, and that meant he was responsible for the pregnancy because he put himself in that situation. The dad argued that's not how biology works. They fought every night. She said he was destroying their family by not making their son take responsibility. He said she was destroying their family by refusing to accept their son for who he is. The paternity test came back 6 weeks later. Negative, not his baby. The ex-girlfriend's parents apologized. The son was relieved but still crushed that his mother didn't believe him. The wife didn't apologize. She said the test didn't change the fact that their son had lied and manipulated them. The dad said he lied because he was terrified of your reaction. Look at how you're reacting now. He was right. She didn't speak to him for a week after that. The son started staying with the dad's brother, his uncle. He refused to come home. The dad visited every weekend. The wife went to therapy, but only to get the therapist to agree that the son needed to face consequences. The therapist told her gently that her son was a victim of his own fear, not a perpetrator. She stopped going. The dad filed for separation 3 months later. He couldn't live with someone who would rather destroy her own child than admit she was wrong. In the last update, the dad said his son is doing better. He's out to his close friends, he's seeing the boy from the baseball team, and he's passing all his classes. The dad moved into an apartment. The wife still refuses to meet with the son unless he apologizes for lying. The dad said, "I told her she'll die alone if she keeps this up." She said I was being dramatic. I hung up. I don't know if we'll ever be a family again, but at least my son knows his dad has his back. I read that and thought about Casey filming me, about HR telling me I was selectively disabled. It's the same sickness. People who can't handle the truth because it doesn't fit their narrative. They'd rather break someone than admit they were wrong. I don't know if that dad will ever get through to his wife. I don't know if I'll ever get justice from my job. But I know one thing, we both stood up for what was real even when it cost us everything. And that's all you can do. But there's another story that hit close to home. A dad reached out to me after I posted about my own situation. He said I could share his story. So here it is in his own words, I'm the dad from that pregnancy mess. I know the internet already ate me alive for not siding with my wife, but I need you to hear the full thing before you judge. It started with a phone call. My son had just turned 16. He's a good kid, but like all teenagers, he's an idiot sometimes. He had a girlfriend, almost 17, nice girl. They broke up about a month before the call. I thought it was just typical high school drama. Then her parents called, voice shaking. She was pregnant about 8 weeks along and the dates lined up with when they were still together. My wife, let's call her Karen because that's what she became, immediately went into crisis mode. We waited 2 days to tell our son. He was playing video games in his room. We sat on his bed and I watched his face go from confused to angry. It's not mine, he said. I never fucked her. I didn't believe him. I knew he was sexually active. He asked me for condoms before and I gave them to him because I'd rather he be safe than sorry, but he kept insisting. He admitted he cheated on her, which pissed me off, but he swore they never had intercourse. I had a long talk with him. I called him a shithead for cheating, but I also started to believe him about the sex part. He said he always wrapped up and he could account for every single condom he'd taken from my drawer. Stupid kid was keeping a tally on his phone. My wife didn't believe a word. She said I was part of boy culture, that I was enabling him, that we needed to take responsibility. We had a family meeting with the girl's parents. I tried to stay neutral, but Karen jumped straight into planning how much money we'd need, whether they'd keep the baby, what role our son would play. My son sat there, fists clenched, and said louder than before, I did not have sex with her, I can't be the father. Then he dropped a bomb. He said they only ever did one thing, oral, and it was so unsatisfying he never wanted to go further. That's when I lost it. I yelled at him for being disrespectful, for talking about a girl that way. He just looked at the floor. The ex-girlfriend spoke up and confirmed they rarely did anything, but she described one specific event with a date and time that seemed real. It was believable, but still my son swore it wasn't his. We went home and had the worst fight of my marriage. Karen said I was destroying our family by not forcing him to step up. I said she was ignoring facts. She started sleeping in the guest room. A week later, my son came home from school looking like he'd seen a ghost. He sat me down and said, Dad, I'm gay. He was crying so hard he could barely speak. He said he'd known for years he never wanted to have sex with his ex. He cheated on her with a boy from the baseball team. That's why he needed condoms for that relationship, not for her. He said the ex-girlfriend knew the truth and they had an agreement to keep it secret while he figured things out. I didn't scream. I hugged him and told him I was proud of him for trusting me. Then I asked if his mother knew. He shook his head. I called Karen into the living room. I told her as gently as I could. She stared at our son like he was a stranger. Then she said, You're just saying that to avoid being a father. You think being gay gets you out of consequences? My son broke down. He showed her text from the ex-girlfriend where she said, I know you're gay, it's okay, I won't tell anyone. He showed her text from the baseball boy, lovey messages. Karen didn't even look at the phone. She walked out. She didn't speak to either of us for 2 days. When she finally came back, she said it didn't matter. You still did things with her. You put yourself in that situation. You are responsible for the pregnancy because you didn't use a condom for that encounter. I said, honey, that's not how biology works. You can't get pregnant from oral sex. She said, then why would she lie? Why would she say it was him? I showed her the texts again. She wouldn't look. The paternity test came back 6 weeks later. Negative. The ex-girlfriend's parents called to apologize. They said she finally admitted the baby was from a summer camp fling, not my son. My son was relieved but also shattered. His mother still wouldn't believe him. She said the test was a fluke. She said he'd manipulated the system. My son moved in with my brother. He refused to come home. I visited every weekend. Karen went to a therapist but only to get validation. The therapist told her that her son was a victim of his own fear, not a perpetrator. Karen quit therapy. I filed for separation 3 months after the test results. I couldn't live with someone who would rather destroy her own child than admit she was wrong. My son is doing better now. He's out to his close friends. He's dating the baseball boy. He's getting straight A's. I have an apartment with a spare room for him. His mother still refuses to meet unless he apologizes for lying. He won't. I told her she'll die alone if she keeps this up. She said I was dramatic. Maybe I am, but I'd rather be dramatic than cruel. And then there's my own story. I'm the woman with chronic pain who was filmed by a coworker. I never thought someone would try to prove I was faking my disability just to get a promotion. But here we are. I have a condition that keeps me at a constant 6 out of 10 on the pain scale. Normal people walk around at a 1 or 2. I'm always at a level where if I move wrong, it spikes to an 8. Imagine stepping on a Lego, but that feeling never goes away. Some days I'm okay enough to function without a cane. Rare blessed days I drop to a 4 and I feel like I can conquer the world. On bad days, when I'm at a 7 or above, I use my canes. I have a handicap placard on my car. I have all the paperwork filed with my job for accommodations. I'm legally disabled, physically and legally. I work 2 jobs. My full-time gig pays the bills, but I do a part-time job at a retail chain because I like the work and it keeps my anxiety in check. I was recently moved to a new location closer to my house. I loved my new team. My boss, Amy, was a saint. She understood my condition and never questioned my needs. Then there was Casey. We were both assistant coordinators reporting to Amy. Casey wanted Amy's job badly. She made it known to everyone. I didn't want the promotion. It would mean full-time, and I already had a full-time job. I was just there to pad my savings and stay busy. Casey saw me as a threat anyway. It started small. Comments about my parking spot. Oh, you parked in the handicap spot today? You seemed fine yesterday. I explained that my condition fluctuates. She nodded, but I saw the look in her eyes, doubt. Then came Sunday, January 12th. I woke up at a 7, everything hurt. I used my cane to get out of bed. I drove to my part-time job, parked in the handicap spot, hung my placard. I limped through my shift. Casey saw me. She didn't say anything. The next day, Monday, I felt better. I was at a 5, still crappy but manageable. I didn't use my cane. I walked normally. I even jogged across the parking lot to avoid a rain shower. Big mistake. Tuesday morning, Amy called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. She said Casey had approached her with a complaint. Casey claimed I was faking my disability. She said she had proof. Amy didn't want to show me, but I insisted. Casey had filmed me from her car. The video showed me jogging in the parking lot, then walking normally into the store. No cane, no limp. Casey had timestamped it. She said if she can run, she doesn't need handicap parking. She's abusing the system. I was stunned. I explained to Amy that my condition fluctuates. I showed her my medical paperwork again. She believed me, but she said HR had to get involved because Casey filed a formal complaint. HR called me in. I sat across from a woman named Patricia who looked at me like I was wasting her time. I explained chronic pain, the fluctuating nature, the canes, the placard, the doctor's note. Patricia said, so you admit you can walk without assistance sometimes? I said yes, that's the nature of the condition. She said, then you're selectively disabled. That's not how disability works. You can't claim disability only when it's convenient. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, that's literally how chronic pain works. It changes day to day. She said, well, we need to review your accommodation request. In the meantime, please don't use the handicap parking. I filed a police report for stalking. Casey had followed me into the parking lot, filmed me without consent, and used that video to try to get me fired. The officer listened, looked at my paperwork, and said, this is a civil matter between coworkers. We can't do anything. I asked if he was serious. He said, ma'am, unless she threatened you, it's not a crime. I'm black. I'm in Texas. I knew the odds were stacked against me, but I didn't give up. I posted on Reddit asking if I was overreacting. The internet exploded. People told me to lawyer up, to document everything, to file an EEOC complaint. I did all of it. I found a disability rights attorney who took my case on contingency. She sent a cease and desist letter to the company and to Casey personally. The company's response was weak. They said they would review their policies. Casey retaliated by posting the video on her social media with a caption, "When fakers get caught." I started getting messages from strangers, some supportive, some hateful. One guy commented, if you can jog, you can work, stop milking the system. I was crushed. My pain spiked from the stress. I had to take 3 days off work. Amy called me at home and said she was on my side, but her hands were tied. She said Casey was gunning for her job and had the support of Patricia in HR. A month went by, nothing changed. Casey still worked there. She still smirked at me. I still parked in the regular spots because I was afraid of another complaint. My body paid the price. Long walks from the far end of the lot left me in agony. I started using my cane every day just to survive. Then 4 weeks ago, something shifted. I got a call from my attorney. She said the EEOC had accepted my complaint for investigation. She also said the company's corporate headquarters had received several complaints about Casey's behavior from other employees, anonymous, but enough to trigger an internal review. Casey had a history of being hostile to anyone she perceived as competition. I wasn't the first. Last week, Casey was put on administrative leave. I don't know if she'll be fired. The investigation is ongoing, but for the first time, I feel like someone believes me. Amy told me under her breath that Patricia in HR was also being reviewed. Karma, I guess, but the damage is done. I can't look at my coworkers the same way. I flinch every time I see a phone pointed at me. I changed my parking spot again, this time to a camera-blind spot. I'm paranoid, and I'm angry. I shouldn't have to fight this hard just to exist in a body that hurts. I shouldn't have to be filmed, doubted, humiliated. Casey wanted a promotion. She didn't care who she destroyed to get it. I thought I was overreacting when I first posted. I thought maybe I was being too sensitive. But the more I read about people like that dad whose wife refused to believe their son, the more I see the pattern. It's not about the facts. It's about what people want to believe. Casey wanted to believe I was a faker because that made her a victim. My HR wanted to believe I was abusing the system because that made their job easier. The police wanted to believe it was just a workplace dispute because that meant less paperwork. I'm still waiting for the investigation to conclude. My attorney says we have a strong case, but even if I win, I'll never feel safe at that job again. I'm looking for other positions, but the job market is brutal, and every time I update my resume, I wonder if Casey's video will follow me. How do you explain I was filmed by a jealous coworker and it went viral because people love to hate disabled people? I don't have an ending for this story yet, but I have hope, and that's more than I had 6 months ago. But that wasn't the only story that stuck with me. Around the same time, there was another post that made me realize how much denial can tear a family apart. A dad wrote in asking if he was the asshole for not siding with his wife over their son's ex-girlfriend's pregnancy. And man, did that one hit different. The dad, let's call him Mark, started by saying his son had just turned 16. The kid was a dog, no way around it. Mark admitted that up front. His son was active, he'd asked for condoms multiple times, and Mark knew his boy wasn't a saint. But about a month before the story starts, the son and his girlfriend broke up. She was 16, almost 17. Then 3 weeks later, her parents showed up at Mark's door and said she was pregnant. She was already starting to show. The dates lined up with the relationship. Mark and his wife went into full panic mode. They waited a couple days before telling their son, who had no idea. When they broke the news, the kid didn't hesitate. He said, "It's not mine, I never fucked her." Mark didn't believe him at first because, like I said, the kid was active, but the son insisted. He said they never had sex. He told Mark, "I always rap, you know I ask for restocks." Mark started to actually believe him, but the wife, she wouldn't budge. The families met to discuss the situation. Mark's wife started the conversation by just accepting that their son was the father. She was already talking about funding, support, how they'd handle it. Mark's son got angry. He said again, "It's not my baby. We never did it." Then he dropped a comment that Mark had to rephrase for the forum. Apparently the only act they ever performed was something that couldn't result in pregnancy, and the kid said it was so unsatisfactory he never went any further. Mark and his wife raged at him for that, like seriously, what kind of shitty behavior? But the son stuck to his story. The ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely had sex, but she described one specific event, the when and the where, and it sounded believable too. Mark was torn. He knew his son was a liar in general, but on this he genuinely believed the kid. His wife was furious at him for playing into his nonsense. She accused him of being part of boy culture, like he was enabling their son. She said the baby was coming and they needed to accept it. Mark tried to reason with her. He said, "What if he's telling the truth? We're about to claim a kid that might not be ours." But his wife said, "He's lying to protect himself. You're falling for it because you're a man." That hurt. They had a huge fight. Mark ended up sleeping on the couch for 3 nights. The ex-girlfriend's parents started pressuring for a paternity test. Mark wanted one. His wife didn't. She said it would humiliate the girl and destroy whatever relationship they had left. Mark said, "I don't care, I need to know." They compromised. They'd wait until the baby was born, but Mark made it clear he wasn't paying a dime until there was proof. Weeks passed. The tension at home was unbearable. Mark's wife started treating him like a traitor. She'd say things like, "I hope you're happy when your son abandons his child." Mark started doubting himself. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was just believing his son because he didn't want to face the responsibility. Then, about a month later, Mark's son came to him one night. He looked terrified. He said, "Dad, I have to tell you something. I didn't want to say it before because I was scared, but I'm gay. I've been seeing a guy from school. We've been together for 6 months. That's why I broke up with ex-girlfriend. I felt guilty for leading her on, and that's why I know for sure the baby isn't mine. I never had sex with her, ever." Mark sat down hard. He didn't scream. He just asked, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" His son said, "I thought you'd hate me. Mom always talks about how she wants grandkids the normal way. I didn't know how to say it." Mark hugged him. He said, "I don't care who you love. I just care that you're honest with me." They talked for hours. Mark's son was scared about his mom's reaction. Mark said he'd handle it. The next day, Mark told his wife. She didn't believe him at first. She said, "He's making this up to get out of responsibility." Mark said, "No, I believe him and we need to support him." "I've started crying, not happy tears, angry tears." She said, "You're ruining our family. You're letting him lie and now he's hiding behind being gay. That's even worse." Mark was stunned. He said, "What do you mean worse? He's coming out to us. That's brave." His wife said, "He's doing it to avoid accountability. I don't buy it." They argued for days. Mark's wife refused to talk to their son about it. She told him she needed time. The son felt rejected. He started staying at friends' houses. Mark felt like his wife was choosing denial over their kid. Meanwhile, the ex-girlfriend's parents started getting suspicious. They asked for a paternity test before birth. Some clinics do them with blood tests now. Mark agreed immediately. His wife fought it, but Mark put his foot down. He said, "We need the truth. If it's his, I'll pay for everything. If it's not, we need to stop this charade." The test came back, not his son. The ex-girlfriend's baby was fathered by someone else, someone she'd been seeing on the side. She admitted it after the results. She said she was scared and hoped the timeline would line up. Mark's son was furious but also relieved. He said, "I told you, Dad, I told you." Mark's wife broke down, not because she was wrong but because she felt humiliated. She told Mark, "You made me look like an idiot. You should have told me about the gay thing sooner." Mark said, "I didn't know until he told me, and even if I did, would you have believed me?" She didn't answer. The marriage changed after that. Mark's wife started going to therapy, but she still blamed Mark for not forcing their son to step up. She said, "Even if it's not his, we could have supported her anyway." "Now everyone hates us." Mark said, "No, we could have supported our son. Instead, you chose to believe a lie." Mark's son came out to the rest of the family. Most were supportive. His wife's parents were not. They said it was a phase that hurt, but the son held strong. Mark told him he was proud. The ex-girlfriend's family apologized for the confusion. Mark didn't hold a grudge. He just felt exhausted. He posted on Reddit asking, "AITA for not siding with my wife." The consensus was clear in TA, but that didn't fix his marriage. Months later, Mark updated. His wife had started individual therapy and they were doing couples counseling. She admitted she had been terrified of their son being a deadbeat dad because her own father abandoned her. She projected that fear onto the situation. She said she was sorry for not believing him, but there was still a coldness between them. Mark said, "I don't know if we'll make it, but at least my son knows I have his back." The thread was full of people saying how many families would have forced the kid into a false paternity, how many kids get trapped. Mark's story reminded me of Casey filming me, how people will twist facts to fit their narrative. Mark's wife wanted the baby to be real because it scared her. Casey wanted me to be a faker because it made her feel superior. HR wanted me to be abusing the system because it was easier. And the police wanted it to be a civil matter because they didn't want to do paperwork. I'm still waiting on my EEOC investigation. Casey got put on leave, but I heard through the grapevine she's fighting it. She's claiming I harassed her by filing a complaint. My lawyer says that's retaliation and we can sue. I'm not sure I have the energy. But then I think about Mark, about how he stood up for his son even when his wife screamed at him. And I think about my own family, how my mom told me I was overdramatic about my pain. She said, "You're too young to be disabled." Like disability has an age limit. I used my cane the other day in the grocery store. A woman stared. I stared back. She looked away. That's the best I can hope for people looking away. But I'm done looking away from myself. I'm disabled. I'm in pain and I'm not faking anything. I'm disabled. I'm in pain and I'm not faking anything. But let me back up and tell you how I got here, because the story with Casey didn't start in that grocery store parking lot. It started months before when I was transferred to a new location closer to my home. I have chronic pain. I always explain it like this. If pain is on a scale of 1 to 10, normal people hover at a 2 or 3 on a bad day. People like me, we're at a 6 every single morning. Imagine stepping on a Lego, that sharp jolt that makes you gasp. Now imagine that feeling in your back, your knees, your hands all day, every day. Some days I'm higher, some days I'm lower. Rare blessed days I'm a 4. I own canes, but I only use them when I hit a 7 or above. My new team was great. My boss Amy was really supportive. My colleague Casey and I shared the same position, assistant coordinator. Casey wanted a promotion to full-time. I didn't. I already had a full-time job and this one was just padding my savings and keeping me busy. It helped with my anxiety, but Casey saw me as a threat. She started making comments about how I didn't look disabled because I could walk into the office without a cane. She'd say things like, "Must be nice to have a handicap placard when you're clearly fine." I ignored her at first. I thought I was overreacting. Then one Sunday I had a flare-up, pain level 8. I used my cane, put my handicap placard on my rearview mirror and drove to the grocery store. I didn't know Casey was following me. She parked a few spaces away and watched me get out, walk slowly with my cane and go inside. She filmed me on her phone. Then she took that video to Amy and said I was faking my disability because I walked normally at the store. Never mind that I was limping, leaning on the cart, wincing. She edited the narrative. Amy called me into her office the next day. She showed me the video. I didn't scream. I just felt this cold wave wash over me. I said, "That's me using a cane. That's my handicap placard. That's my chronic pain." Amy said, "I believe you, but Casey has filed a complaint saying you're abusing the system. I have to escalate it to HR." HR called me in for a meeting. They asked if I had documentation. I handed them a stack of papers, doctor's notes, disability verification, accommodation requests filed months ago. They said they'd investigate. Meanwhile, Casey kept filming. She followed me to a pharmacy, a park, even outside my apartment complex. She sent the videos to HR anonymously, but I knew it was her. I filed a police report. The officer looked at me and said, "This is a civil matter. She's not breaking any law by filming you in public." I said, "She's stalking me." He shrugged. "Take it up with HR." I left the station feeling like I'd been slapped. I went back to HR and told them about the stalking. They said they'd talked to Casey. 2 weeks later, nothing changed. Casey still worked next to me, still made snide comments under her breath. I started using my cane every day, even on low-pain days, just to prove a point, but I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. My pain got worse. Then I found out Casey had been telling other coworkers I was faking. She said I was milking the system for the handicap placard. A few people started looking at me differently. One guy asked, "So are you really disabled or just lazy?" I wanted to cry. Instead, I filed an EEOC complaint. That's when things got serious. HR finally put Casey on paid leave, but she didn't stop. She started posting on social media about how I was a fraud and wasting taxpayer money. A friend showed me the posts. I couldn't believe it. My lawyer said we could sue for defamation and retaliation. I didn't have the energy. But then I thought of Mark standing up to his wife for his son. I thought of how he didn't back down even when everyone called him wrong. So I pushed forward. The EEOC investigation took months. I had to give statements, provide medical records, show my pain diary. Casey's lawyer tried to argue that I was too young to be disabled, that I looked fine in the videos. My lawyer produced a note from my pain specialist explaining that chronic pain doesn't always show on the outside. The investigator asked Casey why she felt the need to film me. She said I was just trying to help the company. Help, she wanted my job. The results came last week. The EEOC found reasonable cause that Casey engaged in disability discrimination and retaliation. They recommended mediation. Casey's lawyer reached out offering a settlement. My lawyer said we could get more if we went to court. I said, I just want this to end. But then I remembered the police officer shrugging. I remembered HR doing nothing until the EEOC stepped in. I told my lawyer, let's go to court. The settlement offer was small. Casey is still fighting. She claims I'm the one who harassed her by filing the complaint. My lawyer laughed when he told me. That's classic retaliation, he said. We can sue for that too. I don't know if I have the stamina for a trial. But every time I think about giving up, I picture Casey's smug face in that HR meeting saying she's not really disabled. I used my cane in the grocery store yesterday. A woman stared. I stared back until she looked away. It's the best I can hope for people looking away. But I'm done looking away from myself. I'm disabled, I'm in pain, and I'm not faking anything. That's the end of my story for now. Casey is still on leave. My job is safe. My boss Amy has been supportive. She even apologized for not handling it better. I accepted. I know she was stuck between policy and doing what's right. I'm seeing a therapist for the anxiety this caused. My chronic pain hasn't gotten worse, but it hasn't gotten better. I just keep going. And Mark, I reached out to him through a mutual friend. I told him his story gave me strength. He wrote back saying his marriage is still rocky, but his son is doing well. He's proud of his kid for coming out, and he's proud of himself for standing firm. He said, we can't control what other people believe. We can only control what we know to be true. I keep that line in my head when I walk into the office, cane in hand, knowing Casey might come back, but I'll be ready. I have my documentation, I have my lawyer, and I have the truth. That counts for something. I'm the dad who didn't side with my wife over our son's ex-girlfriend's pregnancy. Reddit called me an asshole, but I was right. Let me back up. My son, let's call him Jake, just turned 16. He's a good kid, but he's a typical teenager, sneaks out, talks back, leaves dishes everywhere. He'd been dating this girl Emily for about 8 months. She was almost 17. They seemed happy. Then about a month before everything blew up, they broke up. Jake said it was mutual. I didn't pry. 3 weeks after the breakup, we got a call from Emily's parents. They asked us to come over. My wife Sarah and I drove over, thinking maybe they wanted to talk about some school thing or maybe Jake had done something stupid. When we sat down in their living room, Emily's mom handed me a piece of paper. It was an ultrasound. She's pregnant, her mom said. About 10 weeks. The dates line up with when they were together. I felt like someone had kicked me in the chest. Sarah started crying. Emily's dad looked like he wanted to punch someone. We sat there for an hour talking about options, about support, about what this meant for both families. I kept thinking Jake is going to be a father at 16. When we got home, we called Jake into the living room. He came in looking nervous, like he knew something was up. Sarah blurted it out, Emily is pregnant, you're going to be a dad. Jake's face went white. Then he said something I didn't expect. It's not mine, I never fucked her. I stared at him. I knew he was sexually active. He'd asked me for condoms and I'd given them to him. I'd had the talk with him about responsibility, so hearing him say that felt like a lie. Sarah started yelling at him. You're covering it up. You're just like your father. Never take responsibility. I flinched at that, but I stayed calm. I asked Jake to explain. He said we did stuff, but we never had sex. I always rapped, and I restocked when I ran out. He looked me in the eye. I cheated on her dad with someone else. I feel terrible about it, but I didn't touch her like that. I asked who he cheated with. He wouldn't say, but something in his voice told me he was telling the truth. I've known this kid his whole life. When he lies, he talks fast and avoids eye contact. That night, he held my gaze. He was scared, not lying. Sarah didn't believe him. She said I was enabling him, that I was part of the boy culture that lets kids get away with anything. She said she was ashamed of both of us. That night, she slept on the couch. We had a joint meeting with Emily's parents. Sarah started the conversation by accepting that Jake was the father. She was already talking about child support, about how he'd help raise the baby. Jake sat there with his arms crossed. When Sarah paused, he spoke up. I said it's not mine, we never had sex. He was angry, then he made a comment I'll rephrase for modesty. He said they only ever did oral and it wasn't good, so he never went further. I'm not the father, he said. Emily admitted they rarely had sex, but she described one specific time and place. It was believable. Jake's face went red. He said, I wasn't even with her that day, I was with someone else. His eyes were pleading. I believed him. Sarah didn't. The next few weeks were hell. Sarah wouldn't talk to me. She called my mother and said I was raising a delinquent. My mother, who never liked me much, said I should listen to my wife. I felt like I was going insane, but I kept thinking about Jake's face. He was scared, not lying. Then Emily's parents demanded a paternity test. Jake agreed immediately. That should have been the first red flag for Sarah. He was so confident, but she still thought he was bluffing. The test came back, 0% probability. Jake was not the father. I didn't say I told you so to Sarah, but I didn't have to. She just stared at the result and then went into the bedroom and closed the door. Jake came to me that night and said, Dad, I need to tell you something. The person I cheated with, it's a guy. His name is Marcus. I'm gay. I hugged him. I told him I loved him no matter what. He cried. I cried too. I don't care who my kid loves. I just want him to be safe and happy. But Sarah didn't take it well. When Jake told her, she got quiet. Then she said, you should have told us. You should have told Emily. You ruined her life. Jake said, I didn't get her pregnant. The test proved that. Sarah said, you still led her on. You made her think you loved her. Jake said, I did love her, but not like that. Sarah walked out of the room. That was the beginning of the end. Over the next few months, she became distant. She blamed me for encouraging Jake's homosexuality. She said I was too soft on him. I pointed out that she was the one who had an affair 10 years ago. I knew about it. I had forgiven her. She said that was different. I said, no, it's exactly the same. You hid something. I forgave you. Now you need to forgive our son. She didn't. Then I found out she had been seeing someone again, a coworker. I came home early one day and found her texting a guy named Derek. She tried to hide it, but I saw the screen. I asked her if she was cheating. She said, I need someone who understands me. You've become a stranger. I filed for divorce. It's been 6 months now. Sarah moved out. Jake lives with me full-time. He's dating Marcus and they're happy. Emily had the baby. It's a boy. She named him after her father. The real father came forward eventually, a college guy she'd also been seeing. She didn't know who the father was. Jake was just the most recent boyfriend. Jake is in therapy. He's doing okay. He still talks to his mom, but it's strained. She says she's working on accepting him, but that's like saying you're working on breathing. He's your son, just love him. I got called an asshole by a lot of people on Reddit for not siding with my wife. Some said I was enabling my son's immoral behavior, but I know the difference between a liar and a scared kid. Jake was telling the truth. I stood by him. My marriage is over. My wife is gone, but my son is proud of me. That's all that matters. We can't control what other people believe. We can only control what we know to be true. I keep that in my head when I see Sarah at pickups. She looks at me like I'm the enemy. I look back and I know I did the right thing. Jake is going to be fine. He's going to grow up and love who he loves, and he'll know his father always had his back. That's the end of my story for now. Divorce is final in a few months. I'm selling the house. Jake and I are looking at apartments together. He's already picked out a room for Marcus to stay over. I'm not ready for that, but I'll get there. One thing at a time. And Emily, she sends me pictures of the baby sometimes. I don't hold a grudge. She was a kid too. She made a mistake. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them and raise our kids to be honest even when the truth hurts. I'd do it all over again. I'd stand by my son. I'd let my wife walk away. Because at the end of the day, you have to look yourself in the mirror and know you did the right thing. I can do that. Can she? That story hit close to home for me because I'm right in the middle of my own nightmare at work right now. Another kind of disbelief, another kind of betrayal. I'm a black woman in Texas and I have a chronic pain condition. I'll explain it like this. Most people wake up at a pain level of maybe 1 or 2. I wake up at a 6 every single day. Some days it's a 4 and those are blessings. On bad days I'm at a 7 or 8 and that's when I use my cane. I also have a handicap placard on my car and I've filed all the proper paperwork with my job for accommodations. I work 2 jobs. My main one is full-time, and then I have a part-time gig as an assistant coordinator at a different company. I was recently moved to a new location closer to home. My new boss, Amy, is awesome. My coworker Casey and I share the same title. We got along fine at first, but I quickly learned Casey wanted a promotion badly. She'd been gunning for it for years. I made it clear I didn't want it. My part-time job is for extra savings and to keep my anxiety busy. I don't need the full-time position. So when Amy's boss started talking about expanding the team, Casey saw me as a threat anyway. Everything started to go wrong about 3 weeks ago. I had a really bad pain day on a Sunday. I used my cane. I parked in a handicapped spot. I did my shift fine. Then on Monday, Casey called me over and said, "Hey, someone sent me a video of you from yesterday. You were walking just fine without your cane. Are you sure you're actually disabled?" I thought she was joking. I told her, "I had a bad day. I don't use the cane every day." She just smiled and said, "Sure." 2 days later, I got called into HR. Amy was there looking uncomfortable. The HR manager, a woman named Susan, played a video on her laptop. It was me at a grocery store on Tuesday, just walking normally, no cane, picking up some milk. The video was taken from a car, Casey's car. The timestamp showed it was after work, on a day when I wasn't using my cane because I was having a rare low-pain day. Susan asked, "Can you explain this?" I said, "I have chronic pain. I don't always need the cane. That's the nature of the condition." She nodded but said, "We have to investigate. Casey has made a formal complaint that you're falsifying your disability status." I felt like I was being interrogated for a crime I didn't commit. I handed over all my medical documentation again. I told them about my handicap placard, my doctor's notes, everything. Amy backed me up, but Susan said, "We'll need to do a full review." I left that meeting shaking, then it got worse. I started seeing Casey's car outside my apartment, once, twice, 3 times. She'd park down the street and film me as I left for work. I called the police. They said, "She hasn't threatened you and it's public property. There's nothing we can do." I told them she's stalking me, but they shrugged. I'm a black woman with a disability in Texas. The cops don't take that seriously. Casey began spreading rumors at work that I was faking it to get special treatment. She told other coworkers I was a scammer and that I was taking advantage of the system. People started looking at me differently. Some avoided me. A few offered sympathy but said, "You know how she is, just ignore her." I couldn't ignore her. She was taking videos of me everywhere. She even filmed me at a gas station once. I felt like I couldn't leave my house without being watched. I went to the police station again. An officer told me, "Ma'am, stalking is hard to prove unless there's a direct threat. You can try a restraining order, but good luck." I cried in the parking lot. I didn't scream. I just sat there trying to figure out how to fight this. Then HR finished their review. They came back and said, "We found no evidence of fraud. Your disability is legitimate. Casey has been warned to stop filming you." I thought that was the end, but it was. Casey was furious. She started calling me names under her breath. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes on my desk. "Hope you're feeling okay today since you look fine." That kind of thing. I filed a complaint with the ADOC. A lawyer friend helped me. Casey got suspended for a week, but when she came back, she was even worse. She told another coworker that she was going to prove it and that she had hired a private investigator. I don't know if that's true, but the fear is real. I got a security camera for my front door. I changed my route to work. I started feeling like a prisoner in my own life. Last week, I found a note on my windshield. "We see you walking just fine. The truth always comes out." I knew it was her. I went to the police again. They took a report but said, "We can't trace it unless there are fingerprints." I called my boss, Amy, crying. Amy told me she had already talked to the district manager about transferring me to another location and pushing for Casey to be fired. She said, "I'm so sorry this is happening. You don't deserve this." I'm currently waiting for that transfer. Meanwhile, Casey is still at work. I have to see her every day. She glares at me. I hold my head high. I know I'm not faking. I have the medical records, the placard, the pain that wakes me up at 3 a.m. every single night. But this experience has shattered my trust in workplaces, in police, in people. I used to believe that if you do everything right, you'll be protected. That's not true. The update from Reddit that I'm including, this is about a week old, says that Casey is now under formal investigation for stalking. Someone at work reported her for the note on my windshield. She's been put on administrative leave. The police finally took it seriously when HR provided video of her walking around my car in the parking lot. They're talking about charges. I don't know if it'll stick, but I'm not waiting to find out. I'm already looking at apartments in a different county. I'm leaving Texas if I have to. I'll start over. I don't want revenge. I just want to live without pain and without being watched. That shouldn't be too much to ask. But I guess for a black disabled woman in this country it is, so I'll keep fighting, and I'll keep telling my story because if I don't, they win, and I refuse to let them.